He was out of town though. So I was looking for his. Yeah, the next town.
What? No, well, it's a given. Yeah. Yep.
Welcome, everyone. Please stand and for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the prayer tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of our community. Fill us with grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that affect the residents of North Tonawanda, and continue to remind us that all we do here today, all we accomplish is in the pursuit of truth. For the service of humanity, we ask for this in your name. Amen. All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order at, what do we got here? 6:32 on November 6th. And I'd like to have roll call, please.
I have Alderman's Tyler. Here. Piker is absent. Ruby. Here. Braun.
Here.
Zazilka.
Here.
Also present, Mayor Arthur G. Pappas and City Attorney Luke Brown.
And let's begin with some opening comments from the mayor. At this point, the mayor will read his budget message. And understand that the mayor has completed the budget. He is going to present it to the council. And we will have 2 public hearings so that there's no confusion with the papers. One of them will be on November 14th and November 15th, so everybody has ample opportunity. And we welcome any comments, any suggestions, and preferably solutions on some of the things that you'd like to see as we move forward. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the mayor.
Good evening, everyone. And now, this is also messages online along with the budget itself. So if anybody wants to check online, they can.
Audio is up.
Pardon me?
Audio is up? Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, it is not online yet because you did not give it to me. But I can have it online tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning,
Yes.
absolutely.
The letter.
The letter, the mayor's
The message.
message, yes.
In accordance with section 5.021 of the North Tonawanda City Charter, as mayor, I am providing the common council for their review and adoption a copy of my general, water, sewer, and capital fund projects for the fiscal year 2019. Continuing our work on behalf of North Tonawanda taxpayers, this budget keeps North Tonawanda moving forward. This budget increases property tax by 2.9% and stays within the New York State tax cap while still providing the necessary funding to deliver city services in the most cost-efficient manner our citizens expect. Over the past 10 years, there have been 3 years of no increase, 3 years of a decrease, and 4 years of an increase of less than 1%. This means on a home assessed at $100,000, there will be an increase of $38. The general fund budget increases the tax rate from $13.29 per thousand to $13.68 per thousand. The total budget from 2018 to 2019 is an increase of $831,656. The water and sewer user rates remain unchanged. I've utilized $950,000 in undesignated fund balance to close the budget gap and balance the general fund budget. Many tough decisions were made by this administration in producing a fiscally sound budget that's prudent for our residents. With that said, the general fund appropriations for 2019 are $840,656 more than the 2018 adopted budget. This budget provides fundamental public services at a reasonable cost to our residents. It also shows a commitment to public safety and maintenance and improvements of public facilities and infrastructure. Although this shows a slight tax increase, this is due to rising costs in all areas, including insurance, utilities, contractual expenses, police dispatch, equipment, materials with this proposed budget. Also, recycling expenses have increased to $35 a ton, which is an expense previously not accrued. A few years ago, they paid us for the recycling. Past couple of years, we've been paying $5 a ton. Now it's going up to $35 a ton. We have maintained the present workforce with no cuts in services. My 2019 operating budget includes funding for street and sidewalk repair in addition to continued facility improvements for our water and wastewater treatment plants, which require extensive updating to aging facilities. Repairing our city streets is and has been one of my priorities. In addition to the approximate $730,000 the city anticipates receiving from New York State through the Consolidated Local Street and Highway Improvement Program, I have appropriated an additional $350,000 for a total of $1.08 million going into road and sidewalk improvement. As of today, the DPW has milled and paved 15.08 lane miles of city roads this year alone, and that's a record. Each year has been a record the past 3 years, and this even goes beyond that. We have also milled and hot patched 168,222.6 square feet of city roads. The city is committed in continuing the effort to improve upon this critical and noticeable infrastructure. In order to continue with our goals of improved infrastructure, it has become necessary to invest in some new equipment since we've had an aged fleet at the DPW. In some cases, parts can no longer be replaced. Most important is the fact that the safety of our workers cannot be jeopardized with unsafe and insufficient equipment. In order to keep up with the necessary services, I budgeted $140,000 for updated equipment to help our staff keep working safely, more efficiently, and being able to produce a good product for our community. Another part of this new budget involves improvements at our city's golf course. Yearwood Golf Course is a very important revenue generator for our community. In addition, it is a positive quality of life venue for both residents and non-residents. It's a place of recreation of which we are proud. It needs to be maintained properly in order to continually attract golfers and to compete with other courses. Therefore, improvements will continue to be made to the irrigation system, cart paths, equipment, and sand bunkers. We are budgeting $220,000 for the golf course. This is in addition to the $400,000 allocated last year. This budget shows our commitment to provide the necessary services and protection our community should expect. Serving the taxpayers of North Tonawanda and helping our city to continue progressing is my goal. Our duty as elected officials is to provide the basic services in an efficient and cost-effective manner by ensuring your money is spent wisely and appropriately. I believe this budget accomplishes this mission. Again, I'm proud of the work that we've done together. I want to thank all city department heads and their staff for the important part they played in the formulation of this budget. I'd like to take this opportunity to offer to meet with the Common Council to discuss and work with them to finalize the 2019 budget as a cooperative effort. And thank you for your consideration of this budget. And I'd just like to say that even though we say it is the mayor's budget, basically it is by name, but we do have a budget committee that works along with me, along with our accountant and along with our clerk treasurer, it becomes kind of a team effort. But I'd like to thank everybody that has helped with this, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mayor. At this point, I'd like to move on to any comments on the agenda items and the agenda items only for tonight. Please step forward, state your name and address if you have any comments on the agenda.
Hi, BJ Vandewater, 1098 Nash Road. I'll beat the clock. I noticed earlier this year, and I'm going to read directly from the city code. No resolution authorizing or involving the expenditure of money shall be adopted except by a majority vote of the entire membership of the Common Council. I interpret this, and Mr. Brown, Attorney Brown and I have had some conversations. He's still doing his research to come up with an answer. I interpret this as saying that if you want to spend money, everybody on the council has to be here to either approve it or not approve it. I do that for two reasons. One, it has a separate definition of the quorum when it comes to spending money. And two, now this is my own personal interpretation, and I've shared this with Attorney Brown. I believe that the writers of the charter wanted the voters to be able to see how everybody voted on any kind of an expenditure. I've kind of been aware of this for a while, and I mentioned this to Attorney Brown, but this became important to me after the meeting on October 2nd, when unfortunately the alderman from my ward was not able to attend, and a number of items were voted on spending the city's money. And I would like to say that given that this interpretation is at least considered a reasonable, it has not yet been rejected by our own city attorney, that the following four items on tonight's agenda that have to do with spending of the money, number 7.1, 2, and 3 from the accountant, and number 10 from the police chief, be tabled until we have a chance to do that with the full vote of every attending member of the city council.
I have a question for you. I don't mean to interrupt. So you're saying for the last 6 or 7 years, when we had a 3-1, 4-1 vote, we have never had a 2-1 vote, that the majority doesn't count in that majority vote for those 5 members.
When you have a 4-1, Eric, that's not a problem because then you got all 5 members in attendance. Right. A 3-1 vote on any issue that has nothing to do with spending is absolutely acceptable according to both my reading and Attorney Brown's reading of this part of the city code. What's in dispute is, when it comes time to spend money, I believe that this particular phrase was added so that the voters could understand exactly how their aldermen are voting on an issue. And I sent an email on the 12th of October to everybody I'm eligible to vote for. I haven't had a chance to vote for Bob yet because he's not up till the next election.
Yeah, BJ,
And I wrote it to Attorney Brown, and I copied the mayor, the clerk, and all the 2 aldermen at large who I vote for, and also Alderman Baruch.
Yeah, and our previous
Out,
attorney.
but I can't vote for you, Donna. Maybe I would if I could, but
So if I could clarify where I am on it. So my initial reading of it is different from yours.
Yes.
I think it's more of a mechanism for determining how many votes equals a passing majority. So
Right.
I think that's saying the number 3 passes the vote. But what I did say to you is that, yes, I will research it further. I plan on speaking to the chairman from the Charter Commission, and we've been looking for the notes from the Charter Review Board as well, just to confirm that. Because personally, I don't think it makes sense that they would write it the way you're saying, because if there's a long-term absence due to death, which they've had up here, due to illness, which they've had up here, you couldn't conduct any city business. It was not
Right.
possible. I mean, you had, Bob Clark died, so the seat was empty. Russ Rizzo had cancer, was
But
missed.
very sick.
So, I mean, there's just no way, in my opinion, that they would have written it that way, because the city would grind to a halt. You wouldn't be able to pay any bills, you wouldn't be able to do anything.
You'd
So
have to
that's-
appoint someone to put it.
So we're
in
gonna have a
place.
dialogue, because we're gonna have a dialogue. My response, let me respond to Mr.
No,
Brown
but you're
first.
saying what I said,
No,
so I'm
no,
telling
no,
you,
I'm
I'm
saying
telling you
still-
where
Right,
my
where we
position was,
disagree, right,
but I did say I would research it further.
right. And he is still researching it, he hasn't come up with an answer, a definitive answer yet, and I appreciate his efforts, don't get me wrong. What I am saying is, if this is the proper way to read it, then we have to figure out other alternatives.
Right, so BJ, maybe it's a proxy, an assigned proxy, if we do have to miss for some reason. I actually think you make an interesting point, because it's like, and I told Luke this too, I know we're doing more research, but it's the only spot in the charter that says entire membership.
It's the only spot, right?
Instead of saying, I think the other wording, which happens many times, 3 to 5 majority, something along those words. So, from my understanding, when they do things like that, it does have a separation in the law.
Right, and because it normally says, and going back to Eric's point, it normally says a majority of the members elected to the common council. In this particular case, where we're actually voting to spend the taxpayers' money,
What
it
would your,
says,
what would your suggestion be though?
Well,
If a member.
well, let's talk about if somebody's dead, right?
Right,
Then there is, everybody who is alive is present. The dead guy doesn't count because the dead guy
That's a
can't hold
good
an
point.
office, right? Now, in the case of an extended illness, I think Alderman Tyler has a point where you could have a proxy or some other
Can't
mechanism.
have proxies in New York State, that's been researched.
so
Then
call
fair
it
enough.
something else.
Then in
right?
that case, you have to
Call in,
make that.
Can't call it.
No,
Can't
no,
call it.
video conference.
listen, I wasn't trying to solve the problem here tonight, but let's just say here's a number of number of alternatives. One is, once somebody becomes unfit to serve, just like in the Constitution of the United States, if the president is unfit to serve, somebody is named to serve in that person's place, okay? Just like when people are gone for whatever reason, not just to death, but we've had people leave for career reasons or personal reasons, they've left the city, we've always had a chance to bring in somebody else to replace them. We might have to do it more quickly. I haven't seen any vote on spending money that couldn't be postponed for a few weeks, okay? Which is why I would see tabling these 4 issues until Attorney Brown has a chance to tell me I'm full of malarkey, which may be his final position. But I think that it's not appropriate to do something that's not in line with the charter. And I think that if we had.
interpretation wise, like you said.
I'm saying it's my interpretation, I'm not saying that I'm right 100% of the time, because we all know I'm not, okay? But I really think that it's important for the voters to understand how their elected officials would vote on spending their taxpayer dollars. And if they're not present on a vote for spending their taxpayer dollars, how can I know that?
And it doesn't say anything about, okay, we have 2 aldermen at large. Because they're for the whole city.
Doesn't say anything, nope,
It doesn't say anything.
because they're part of your
about
5, they're
that.
part of your
Correct,
5.
they are part of the 5, but the aldermen at large really represent the whole city.
I haven't
I don't know
missed
how
a
he
day
votes,
yet,
okay?
so.
See, this
I
guy's-
understand your point, but I've sat up here through the death of Mr. Clark and, the sickness and the death of Mr. Rizzo. And with Mr. Rizzo, he was determined to come back here, and he did come back for a short time before he passed, so it's a kind of a
Well, that's why
touchy.
the solution
I
would
mean,
be
there
some kind
could
of.
be a solution, but where would we find a person to step in for somebody temporary? And who would that
Okay.
person be?
First, to some degree, I wanna say that's not my problem, so you only got 5 seconds left, okay?
Oh, I took some of that up.
BJ, you got some extra time.
But practically, I would say, if we view, my experience has been, over the many years I was working in the private sector, I was only in the Air Force for about 5 years, was when there was something you had to figure out a solution for, you did. So if we were to look at this the way I'm suggesting, which I'm not, until Luke is finished, I'll defer to Luke, okay? If we were to look at this way, I'm sure we would find a solution. We may not be able to find a solution tonight in the next 15 seconds, but I'm sure we would.
I'd hate to suspend voting on money and then find out we were wrong about the interpretation
Yeah, well,
and hold up.
here's the other way to look at it.
And many things are
If
timely.
I find out I'm right, what are you gonna do? You gonna go back and re-vote everything for the whole year?
I mean, you're gonna do it for the last 15
You're
years.
gonna
I mean,
do it for the last-
historically, that has been read,
Yep.
that it's just counting the numbers of votes needed to pass something. So historically,
Practically, I would wanna go back to at least October 7th.
well, you're saying practically,
But you can't.
you,
Wait, well,
you can't, you can't tell me you want a strict reading of the charter, but then add your own practicality to it. It's either
Here's what
we're reading it strictly or we're not. So
Let me-
what I'm saying is,
Fair enough.
historically, it's been done this way. Until someone tells me otherwise, I would say they can continue that way.
And
Okay,
previously.
I'm telling you, right now, I told you on the 12th of October, if you wanna come back and take a formal position that I'm inaccurate or incorrect, I'll accept that. Well, maybe I won't, that's a different story. But what I'm saying is, at least for tonight, while we have this disagreement or misunderstanding or whatever you wanna call it, that we table these 4 issues to the next voting meeting of the board, when hopefully everybody is there. And then we can tackle what we do in the past. I'm not necessarily gonna be standing up and screaming about every single vote that ever happened. But I think that,
Well, we can't.
as a
we can
voter, I
choose.
think, I have the right to understand how the people I would vote for, or have a chance to vote for,
Sure.
are gonna spend the taxpayer dollars that I spend.
But if it's still, let's give your scenario the full play. So if you didn't have Mark Berube here, and let's say Mark would have voted no with the only outstanding vote, the answer still becomes the majority, which is 5, is 3-2. And you could ask Mark what he would have voted, but.
No, that's not the point.
Let me ask you this,
It
BJ.
is the
Say-
point.
No, it's not the point.
That's
The
why I
point
have
is
a
not
council
after the
person.
vote is done, how do you think you would vote 6 weeks later?
So let me
The
ask you
point is,
this.
when we've discussed it and we have everything fresh in everybody's minds.
So let me ask you this, BJ. So say it's interpreted the way you suggest,
Right.
and something comes on the agenda for money to be spent, and it's gonna fall 4-1. What if that one just doesn't show up for months, because he doesn't want it to pass?
Well, that should be in our laws that,
It's
you know,
not in
like
there.
an
It's not
attendance
in
law,
there.
right? And why don't we have an
But it's
attendance
not in
law?
there. So what you're
So
telling
we
me,
change
you're
that?
telling me they set up a process where someone who disagrees with the other 4 could just not show up for months?
That's not what I'm telling you.
But in
Could happen.
practicality, it could
It
happen.
could happen.
And
You want me to address that practicality? I will.
I'm just
I
saying,
would say I would agree with Alderman Tyler, because there's nothing, by the way, there's nothing in the city code about how an alderman fulfills his attendance duties at a council meeting. And that's another reason why I think this is in here the way it is. You don't have to come to every meeting, but when we're gonna vote on spending money, you better show up.
Well-
That's another way to interpret this, Lou.
But BJ, we
Like, you
spend money
spend
every single council meeting.
Well, it's our responsibility to
warrant-
show up,
There's a
right?
difference,
You know,
like, for
that's
example, the warrant of claims, I think you can't vote on. I just think you can.
But we have deadlines with those bills and we
Well,
can
I
be
was gonna
charged
say,
late
a lot of
fees
it's timely issues.
if we don't meet them.
Excuse me. Is all I'm trying to do is say, I wanna know how my elected officials vote when they spend my money. You guys are the experts, you figure it out, okay? This is the rule. If Attorney Brown wants to tell me after he finishes all of his research that I am mistaken, fine, but until he tells us that, it's at least a fair interpretation of the city code.
It's a subjective interpretation.
what I'm saying is,
Of course, everything is subjective.
What I'm
Eric.
saying
What isn't
is-
subjective when it comes to reading a document and interpreting it?
right, but what I'm saying is, I disagree with
person-
your reading.
person in 10 years,
Historically, it's been done the other way, so unless I find out otherwise, I would say they
We
can
move
continue in
forward
that
with
manner.
what we're
And
doing.
3 other city attorneys.
You guys can do what you want. I can't stop you from doing what you want.
No,
I
we
can only
appreciate-
make my comment, point out what I
Right.
think.
And we can look into it, and we appreciate it, but to suspend city business and incur more tax dollars because we're not paying the bill.
You decide what you can either table or not table. If all 4 of those items gotta be voted on tonight, by the way, that tends to be the habit of this council, which I really wish we were better at, is getting our votes out there ahead of time. So for example, when we voted on Attorney Brown's salary increase, it was the last voting meeting before the deadline of the 1st of May, if I remember correctly, right? We have a tendency sometimes to not plan as well as we could. You decide. I'm just making my comment,
Well,
raising
that's
my
fine, we
point.
appreciate that.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, BJ.
And thanks very much for sharing the ideas. I prefer a dialogue much better than I prefer a monologue, so thank you very
Next
much.
time you can copy me in, so I know.
If you would like an extra email, I'll do it.
Yeah, thank you.
You're more than welcome, Tom.
Anybody else wishing to speak on any agenda items only, please step forward. State your name and address for the microphone.
That was really a good exchange, and I appreciate his comments, concerns, and you having a dialogue with him instead of 5 minutes, shut up and sit down. I appreciate that. And, you know, he raises an important question. In fact, last week, I know the budget's coming up, and I don't remember how it was, but I went to the charter, and what I was reading, I said, hey, I don't know if this is kosher. Now, it may have been a different topic, but it was having to do reading the charter and with the budget. I hope you'll consider what he said. I'm really interested. And I'm thinking, you know, maybe the legal department or some independent agency, watchdog, you might check with as to what the solution is, or is his interpretation correct or not correct? It was a good dialogue, thank you, sir, and council. The reason I'm here is because there's a few things on the item. Judge, Mayor, thanks for the info on the budget. I wanna say right off the bat, some years back, I don't remember what the years, maybe middle 80s, early 90s, I used to sit in on the workshop sessions the Common Council was having. It usually was about 5 weeks, every Saturday. They'd start at 8 o'clock in the morning. Somebody would bring in a bunch of donuts and bagels and coffee, and then 8 o'clock or so, they'd start line by line going over the budget. And there was a system to it. Jaco Basic, former accountant, had started presentation, and then it moved along, and I could sit there, and a few others were there as well, and follow what they are saying, what they're discussing, and you could see they start with the wish list and trim it down and come back and.
Oh, you're talking about the budget sign here, right?
Right.
You said workshop, a budget workshop.
Budget work.
It was a work, like, it was a session
Right.
to go over the budget. And it was usually about 5 weeks on Saturdays, 8 o'clock till 4:30, almost 5. And the thing is, that was then, but for several years now, and I brought it up, I'd like to see that be like that again, not that you do it amongst yourself. And I remember at a workshop session, I think early this year, you have a budget committee that you work together. Ann Reimer's one of the people, and a few other people. That's good, but I think it's part of democracy that your citizens, residents, taxpayers, business owners be able to sit and listen as you discuss your planning on the budget. That to me is very, very basic, and I wish you would bring that back. I've mentioned this a few times, 2 or 3 times, but I haven't got a response. Hey, Sonia, we're gonna have the budget starting. People will be able to listen, and I haven't heard that. So I'm asking, let us participate by listening to your deliberations. And it helps us when we are responding, well, we know why you are appropriating so much money, why you've taken away so much money. That helps in our understanding why you're doing what you're doing. It's called deliberations, we can hear it. We can participate by taking in what you're saying. So I throw that out to you. I want to ask, on the attorney, item Roman numeral 2.1, attorney renewal agreement with New York State Unified Court System and City of North Tonawanda for cleaning and maintenance of court facilities. Now, it seems like it's maintenance, but I'm wondering, when I've been in years past at the courthouse, when you're there, you don't hear very well. In fact, I'll tell you, it's been my experience, whether you're in county court, Supreme Court, state court, probate court, it's like, you don't hear anything. I wish North Tonawanda City Court would have an audio system where you can hear what the judge is saying, what the attorneys are saying. This, to me, is part of democracy. If you can't hear, it's as though they got a door shut from you. So I'm respectfully asking, and I don't know if this is the right agreement, if it includes this, but I'm respectfully asking that North Tonawanda, besides keeping their courtroom clean, that when you're in it, you can hear what is happening by the parties, the judges, stenographer, attorneys, what have you, police. So would you please take that consideration?
Sonia, your time's up. Thank you.
Two things on the court. One, the courts are run by the states, so anything like that.
Do I have to
is
contact the
is funded
state
by the
about
state.
that?
Two, they just redid the court, last year. I think there's a whole new sound system in there.
They what?
They just redid the court within the last year,
The audio system?
and I think it's a whole new audio system in there.
Really?
Yep,
I
it's
will
clear.
make a point of
Yep.
going one of these days, thank you. You know,
Sure,
you
go ahead, enjoy it.
you allowed the first speaker more than 5 minutes. I think it's only fair that I be allowed the same.
No, he was interrupted, but you were only once.
I'm sorry?
You weren't interrupted until your time was up.
He was allotted time in his addressing you, and I feel it's only fair that I receive the same
No,
treatment.
there was a back and forth with him.
Sonia, I do think that you make a good point with the budget workshop. You know, it's my first year seeing the process in which we go about creating the budget. And I know that other municipalities sometimes do a sort of public setting where they educate citizens on why they're making the decisions that they are. And also, I think it sort of softens the blow when certain departments might ask for a big amount of change for, say, a vehicle or new employees or so on. And then there's a dialogue and people can understand that. So I don't think it's a bad idea to do public workshops for budget hearings, and I'd probably recommend it
And
for.
the open-
And we've done that in the
We didn't do it
past.
this year,
Yeah.
but we have
We've
done
done
it
that
in
with
the past.
Amanda, and we've done it with Mark Dodderwich,
I'm talking about,
Dave
when you sit down to work on the budget,
Right.
that citizens, anyone who wants to sit
Yeah,
there
they-
and listen,
they
that they can, but I've never been notified, Sonia, we're having a budget, we're gonna start
Oh,
on the
sure.
budget, and it's gonna be on such and such date.
You've
at
been
such-
on some of them.
Huh?
I've seen you at some of them.
I haven't been for years.
Yeah, we do them in this room, and there's a big
I'm talking
presentation.
about the budget for
Yes.
the year. I haven't,
Yes.
I'm telling you,
I'm
I have
telling you
not
too.
been there.
Well, I've seen you there, and you haven't been to all of them. But we've had presentations
You
on this.
remind me what they say about Trump. How could you say that? I'm the one who is
I'm
telling
at all
you,
the
I've not
meetings.
been there.
Like, last year at the budget meeting, I was there, I was the only one that spoke on the budget.
Right, but there was presentations made by Amanda.
There were a lot of presentations made, but in terms of public attendance, I was the only one that got up and spoke, and I remember.
Okay, but what she's saying is going over the budget line by line,
Oh, that's a different thing.
putting it up and reviewing it, and yes, it
No,
was.
I'm talking about when you're actually start
You
working on
wanna
it.
be
Right.
in on
Right,
the
like
conversation.
Sitting down and having
Between
a
the department
conversation
heads.
with community members,
It's not
department
a
heads,
conversation,
town,
it's a
everyone.
work session on the budget
Yeah.
itself. You discuss line by line, the department head will come in
They
and he'll
do.
say, you know, I need so-and-so because
They
of
have.
such and such. For example, I'm interested in what code enforcement's gonna be
Sonia,
this year.
thank you for your input, Sonia.
But you know, I have something with regards to what he touched on in the
Sonia,
budget.
Sonia, your time
It's
is up.
very important.
Bring it up at the end, Sonia. You
It's
have
on
time
the
at the end.
agenda.
have
You can
time
bring it
at
up
the
at the end.
It's on the
It's on
agenda.
the
It's fine,
agenda.
It's
Sonia.
on the beginning where I have a right to speak about
Any city business
number
has this.
7,
Sonia.
the accountant.
No, any city business, you can still talk
Sonia,
about
can
it.
you just wait until the
can
end?
talk
Is that
about it at the
okay?
end.
I have something else at the second portion, but at the first portion, I wanted to address about the transfer, Roman numeral 7.2 accountant, budgetary transfer, additional cost. There was a, in the packet, it was
7.2,
about
maintenance vehicle and
date
grant
September
monies?
7, September 4, from Grinchwitch, whatever, to tbush@tpolice.com. Congratulations, the United States Department of Transportation, along with the Federal Railroad Administration, FRA, is pleased to announce that your grant application for the city of North Tonawanda request of $24,000 was approved. Next paragraph, for FRA to process your grant, the attached statement of work, SOW, parentheses, close parentheses, needs to be reviewed, completed, and returned to me as soon as possible. I'm thinking, they haven't even read what they need from you, and they've already granted you a $24,000 application. That doesn't make sense. So my question is, what's this about?
Sonia, I believe the police received a grant to,
Who received the grant?
the police department received a grant to outfit a new all-terrain vehicle to patrol the railroad tracks. I believe that's what that's in regards to.
One major change in the SOW from the grant application is the period of performance will be 1 year. This will allow for the targeted enforcement during the time frame that was described in your application. FRA needs to process the SOW in the grant agreement prior to enforcement. I believe it stated something about enforcement. And are we having a problem with
That I don't know. You'd have to take that with the police
hanky-panky
department.
near our railroads?
You'd have to take that with the police department. That I'm not sure. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank
From
you.
what you just said, it would be nice years ago.
Thank you.
Just very quickly,
Thank you.
listen a minute.
No,
Years
thank you.
ago, department heads were in the audience. When anyone
still
addressed
happens.
something, you could find right on the spot.
We got
police
Bill
officer.
Davignot here, we've got Amanda Reimer, I don't know.
Thank you, Sonia.
What I'm saying to you, the police department would be here, the chief or assistant, he would be able to tell me right on the spot what this is about. I'd like to see
We'll make
the
sure he
department
comes
heads
in.
back at the common council.
They are,
meetings.
but we'll make sure the police chief.
Thank you,
All right,
Sonia.
Sonia.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sonia.
Sorry if that took up some more time. Anybody else wishing to speak on any city business, please step forward. Just for the agenda only, please. Anybody else? Seeing that there's none, we'll move on.
We have approval of the minutes of the special session, October 23rd, 2018.
Make that motion.
Moved by Alderman Zazoka,
I'll second.
second by Alderman Berube.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried.
I have proof of publication published 10/12/2018, legal notice, notice of foreclosure of tax liens by the city of North Tonawanda, city clerk treasurer. I have proof of publication published 10/25/2018, legal notice, request for proposals for construction of the storm mechanical bar screen project at the wastewater treatment plant, superintendent of wastewater water. Do I have a motion?
I have a question, actually, for the, what am I saying? The legal notice for the liens, that's just part of the process, for our
Yes.
foreclosure process? Okay.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second
Moved by Alderman Berube, second by Alderman
it.
Zazoka.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, I have from communications from city officials, the attorney regarding renewal agreement between New York State Unified Court System and the city of North Tonawanda for cleaning and maintenance of court facilities.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Moved by Alderman Braun, second by Alderman Tyler.
We have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call on that, please.
Alderman Tyler,
Aye.
Berube,
Aye.
Braun,
Aye.
Zazoka.
Aye, motion carried.
I have from the attorney regarding resolution to accept responsibility for Meadow Drive Extension and Wayne Avenue.
I'll make that motion, to my word.
Moved by Alderman Zazoka,
Second?
second by Alderman Tyler.
We have a motion and a second, and, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I have from the superintendent of wastewater water permission to reject and rebid the bids for the wastewater treatment plant ferric chloride system replacement project contract 2018-10. So we're rejecting the first bids, accepting the rebid.
And maybe, excuse me for a second, Bill, can you come up and talk about this? Because this would be one of the things that we wouldn't be able to vote on tonight. And it's so important, I want BJ to make sure he understands that we gotta do this.
On the next one also.
Yes, please, if you would, it'll clear it up for us.
Yeah, these two items, the ferric chloride system is integral to our waste treatment process. We did receive a notice of violation from the EPA during their inspection back in February. And basically, we really don't have a choice. We have to replace it. They gave us a year extension because we did have it tested, make sure it was still working, it was still operable, which it is for now. It's from 1978. Definitely outused its useful life. So we have to get a new system, and it came in over budget when the bids came in, more than we had, so we are scaling it back. We're using smaller tanks. We took out the walkway that we were gonna install, stuff like that. We're just gonna have to use a ladder contraption, stuff with some safety harnesses. A little more work for the guys, but it saves us some considerable money. And the smaller tanks are just gonna save us about $80,000 alone on that project. What was the other one? Gosh.
The roof.
Oh, the roof.
roof.
Oh, the roof is leaking in on our main building. We have a lot of problems, so excuse me if I can't remember them all. But it happens, things get old like myself. But anyway, that roof is leaking about 3 to 4 feet away from our main panels that operate the wastewater plant. If the water gets there, and we've taken measures to prevent the water from getting in there, but for any reason, in a day like today with a terrible windstorm and heavy rains, if that water were to come in and hit those panels, we're in deep trouble, and we have no backup plan for that part of it. You don't have redundancy for that, what they call PLCs, programmable logic controllers, and they operate the whole plant. So we really need that roof repaired. That roof is original from 1978 or 79. It's only been patched once with the black top and stuff. We kind of patched it all up with the rubberized roofing, but it no longer is patchable. It must be a complete tear off. So we are going to replace it with we did have to go back because it came above budget again. We did look at I hate to say it, but I looked into a Cadillac roof. It was an expensive roof. I didn't realize how much it would cost. So we came back. I met with Dale Marshall, the city engineer. We scaled the project back. We are going to get a EPDM type roof we're going to put out to bid. And again, it's more of a traditional rubberized type roof for flat roofs with a 20-year warranty. So we did have to scale that back though to stay within the city budget. Hopefully we can get that project done. So we did have to rebid them though.
Yeah, we really needed to get that done, and I.
Oh, we do. It's been giving me a lot of sleepless nights, let me tell you. Every time it pours rain, we have a big garbage can, a 20-gallon garbage can underneath all the lights are already burned out in that room, and they're gone because they all got water on them and stuff, so we shut everything down. We had to run cable through to the employees' break room to move all the computers over there, but the panels still remain. We've protected them with plastic sheets and everything else, and it gives me a lot of sleepless
And I
nights.
appreciate you coming to the last few council meetings to explain that whole situation and let us know the dire circumstances.
It's my pleasure. Like I said, you guys have given me the resources to get these things fixed, and I appreciate that.
Bill, do you have any idea when we're gonna send that RFP out and when we can begin to do work on it?
Next week,
Next week?
both of
And
them. I
is
believe
there,
both of them will be out next week, and the other one's the 19th for
Okay.
the southwest, or not southwest, the west bar screen.
Right.
That's gonna go out on the 19th.
and EPDM roof, like I mentioned before, the weather dictates whether or not we can apply
No,
that.
not that one. No,
No?
no problems with weather on that.
Okay,
That could be applied to any weather at any time. So that's one of the reasons we're leaning towards it, because I'm really desperate. I mean, we were very fortunate this summer to have a lot of dry weather, but with all this rain we've had in the last month or so, I'm telling you, that phone rings, I grab my heart when I wake up. I'm thinking, good God, I hope it didn't shut everything down, so.
okay. So probably December then?
I would imagine we can get
Okay.
that done very quickly. I'm
And-
really hoping.
And on top of that, I just want to thank you, because looking into the other options, we were very pleased to find that there was a 20-year warranty when initially Alderman Tyler did not think that there would be anybody that would repair that roof and.
Well, this
stand
actually
by it.
isn't a repair though.
It's
This
a
is
full
actually a
roof.
full
It's
fix.
a full roof, but
Like
it's
I
not the
initially
Cadillac
asked
roof.
It's not the Cadillac. I
It's
do
not the
agree
one
with
you
that.
asked for 150,000.
30-year warranty, I mean.
Yeah, like I said, we did, and I did push for that. I admit it, because I'm trying to fix problems And I know we have to stay within budget, but I'm trying to fix problems so they're long-term, so you folks don't have to come back. I could retire in a couple of years. And I don't wanna do that to the people next to me and kick the can down the road. I'm hoping to fix these things as long-term as possible.
Right.
But we also, I understand, have to do that within our budget. That's on you folks and on me. I have to mind my budget too, so. And
No,
we're just trying, we're just
doing
trying to find a happy
And
compromise.
you're doing a good job prioritizing what we need to have done. And we're also preemptively trying to get things before they break down.
Absolutely.
So
I
that's,
haven't met a more proactive group in my life than these people up here. I'm a registered Democrat and they're all Republicans, so. You guys have done the job and you've been proactive, and really taken charge of what's going on and haven't kicked the can down the road. You guys have done what you needed to do and I greatly appreciate that.
No, we appreciate you.
I'm just sorry it's taken so
Thank you.
long.
no,
No,
It's
we
taken a
gotta
long
get it
time.
done,
We'll get there.
1978,
Yeah,
Gotta get it done.
it's time.
Yeah.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, going back to Bill's first item, this is a motion for permission to reject the bid that was over and to allow him to rebid for the ferric chloride replacement.
I wholeheartedly make that motion.
Moved by Alderman Zazoka,
Second?
second by Alderman Tyler.
We have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Tyler,
Aye.
Berube,
Aye.
Braun,
Aye.
Zazoka.
Aye, motion carried.
Okay, the second item from the superintendent of water regarding permission to reject and rebid the bids for the wastewater treatment plant replacement of the main building A roof.
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Alderman Braun,
I'll second.
second by Alderman Berube.
We have a motion and a second. Can I have roll call on this item as well, please?
Alderman Tyler,
Aye.
Berube,
Aye.
Braun,
Aye.
Zazoka.
Aye, motion carries.
From the city accountant regarding payment of the abstract of claims dated November 6, 2018.
I vote we pay for the abstracts. I'd like to make that motion that we pay the abstracts.
Moved by Alderman Zazoka,
I'll second.
second by Alderman Berube.
We have a motion and a second. Can I have roll call on this, please?
Alderman Tyler,
Aye.
Berube,
Aye.
Braun,
Aye.
Zazoka.
Aye, motion carried.
From the city accountant regarding budgetary transfer to cover additional costs for a maintenance vehicle and grant monies received from New York State.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Alderman Berube,
I'll second.
second by Alderman Braun.
We have a motion and a second. Since this is a money item, can I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Tyler,
Aye.
Berube,
Aye.
Braun,
Aye.
Zazoka.
Aye, motion carried.
From the city accountant regarding extending contract with FCS Administrators, Inc. for the professional services related to workers' compensation claims management services.
Amanda, do you wanna come up and speak on that?
I believe that's an extension, Amanda, just till the end of the year, or is it? Yeah.
The reason we chose to do a one-year extension on this contract, the first period was only 2 years, so a lot of those contracts will get into a 2 or 3 year period, see how things are going, then we do like 1 or 2 year extensions. Typically the max we like to get to is 5 years. The timing kind of worked out with that. We're kind of doing a full overview of our whole situation with workers' comp, and that usually begins with looking at your claims management and loss control services. So there's two components to managing our self-insured workers' comp program. One is that first piece, and then this is the second piece. This is the TPA. They actually do all the paperwork and process all the claims. And then there's another firm, and they're like an actuary. They do all the reports, and they make sure that the TPA is processing everything properly, that your reserves aren't over or understated or anything like that. So this contract was up. We've had our claims manager for a long time now, so we're looking at that, and we're just going to go through the process with the claims manager this year. Make sure that it's been a while, so we want to make sure we have the best firm in place, because they do assist us in selecting new TPAs. So once we get them on board this year, then we'll reevaluate this piece of that. So I didn't want to get into a 3-year contract when we're really not even 100% on the firm we have for our claim management. Not that I'm not 100%, they're great, but we haven't evaluated all of them as a whole in a while, so that's the route we're taking on that. We just wanna keep those claims down and make sure everything is properly managed.
Good job.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to extend the contract with FCS?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Alderman Zazoka,
I'll second.
second by Alderman Tyler.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor to extend the contract?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
I have from the police chief regarding permission to enter into a new contract with Axon Enterprises, Inc. for the police body cameras.
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Alderman Vaughn,
I'll second.
second by Alderman Tyler.
We have a motion and a second. Can I have roll call on this, please?
Alderman Tyler,
Aye.
Berube,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
Aye.
Zazoka.
Motion carried.
From the Youth Recreation and Parks regarding renewal agreement between Diana Sheehan and the City of North Tonawanda for the Youth Court and First Offender Program.
Go ahead, Don.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Moved by Alderman Braun, second by Alderman Zazoka.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I have the traffic safety minutes regarding various traffic safety recommendations from their October meeting minutes. There's 3 items on there that require action. Number 1 is the mayor's office would like a 20 to 25 mile an hour speed zone on Webster Street between Tremont and Goundry Street due to the volume of traffic in the downtown area. The second one is Mark Zellner and Mark Dagler from the DPW requested that the committee look into making Geneva Street a one-way street. Member Dagler states that the measurements of the street do not allow for a fire truck or plow to go down the street safely if a vehicle is in the street. Dagler has interviewed 7 residents on the street who were in favor of the one-way street, but all requested to have the one-way go from Lincoln Avenue to Vandervoort Street. The rest of the residents were not home. The committee is in favor of the one-way street, but recommends that the council send letters to every resident on Geneva Street for this discussion before making this a motion. The committee received letters in regards to placing no parking signs on one of the sides of Weaver Parkway. Member Dagler spoke with numerous residents who were in agreement with placing the no parking signs. The committee recommends that the no parking signs go on the north end of the street due to the location of the fire hydrants, also being on the north side of the street. Those are 3 recommendations that require action.
We can accept everything except for the ones we need the letters to the rest of the residents.
Well, in regards to number 1, the speed limit, it cannot be an official change of speed, but it can be an advisory, speed advisory.
Yeah, we can't put miles per hour. I
Correct.
remember that conversation.
Right, for Rob.
So we'll amend that and then we'll wait to, we pull
We then send out letters to
to the
the
letters for Geneva
whole
Street.
street,
Mhm.
So you are
or am I canvassing them?
accepting the recommendations on number 1 for the speed advisory.
Yep.
And number 4 for the no parking signs on Weaver Parkway.
Correct?
And you're tabling number 3 in regards to the changing Geneva Street to a one-way.
Correct,
Right.
until we get the rest.
I'd like to
Talk to
get that
everyone.
done sooner than later, so the one-way can be done before the snow flies.
Do I have a motion on those 3 recommendations from traffic safety? Well, the 2 recommendations on one table. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Alderman Braun,
I'll second.
second by Alderman Tyler.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
I have monthly reports from the Senior Citizen Center and from the City Clerk Treasurer.
Make a motion to receive and file.
Moved by Alderman Berube. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Alderman Zazoka.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Yep. At this point, if anybody would like to speak on any city business, please step forward and state your name and address at the podium.
PJ Vanderwater, 1098 Nashville. Thank you very much, Mayor, for reading out your letter tonight. I'll look for the copy on the web too. I just wanted to.
Excuse me, there are copies here.
Oh, good, then, because Dan said he didn't think there were any copies here, but I'll grab one tonight before I go. Thank you very much. One of the things I learned, at least I think I learned last year, was doing this budget is kind of like trying to make elephants dance, I guess, right? It's a huge thing, and we have so many things that we gotta coordinate. But trying to make changes at this point in time is difficult. So on the 14th of December last year, I wrote an email to the entire budget committee with the title of using technology to save taxpayers money. And I had a lot of ideas that were in there, and it looks to me like none of them made the cut, which is, I didn't understand, none of them were addressed in that letter.
Can you list what they were, BJ?
Well, the two that it was a pretty long letter, and the only two I want to bring up, because I think within the next week to 10 days, we actually have a chance to address them, is shared services, right? Just like we have shared services for dispatch. My experience, again, in the private sector, not the public sector, I was in a 200-person sales organization that covered 30 countries in the Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. We had 0 typists, clerks, and assistants. And the way we did that was with technology. We all either had an iPad or a computer. If we had to write a memo, we wrote it. If we had to schedule a meeting, we scheduled it. If we had to plan a trip, we planned it. We didn't have assistants running around to try and make our lives easier. Now, I understand that there are clerk typists who are actually doing real work to collect the money for the property taxes and things like that. But this is a way for, if we were to have a shared pool of clerk typists, I believe it's a way that we could actually save the taxpayers some money. I would also say that when I wrote this email, that's applied also to the idea of motor vehicle maintenance. Every department that has motor vehicles has its own separate motor vehicle maintenance group. And I would like to think, well, either A, we could find professional mechanics where we could actually vendor it out at a lower cost, or B, have a pool of people working together to take care of it. Now, at the time, I actually read every single labor contract that we have. I did a freedom of information request. I got all, I think it was 5 of them. And there's an awful lot of good things. I like unions. My nephews in unions. I'm all in favor of unions, so please don't take this the wrong way. However, the city has full and complete control of the number of positions. So if we were to reduce positions as clerk typists, or assistants, or in motor vehicle maintenance, the protections that the union has negotiated for them would fall in place. Okay, so even if they happen to be out of a job, they would still be protected by their union contract. Now, those are the two things that matter to me. And the other thing, we'll see as I have a few seconds left. Here's my numbers about the budget. I gotta pay the budget out of my take-home pay, right? Federal income tax comes first, Social Security, Medicare, state tax, etc. I don't have a fancy house, and I'm fortunate enough that the city gives me a break because I'm a veteran and over the age of 65. I spend $50 a week on property taxes. That's 8% of my take-home pay. That's more than I actually pay Blue Cross and Blue Shield to have a 0 deductible health care plan. So when you say 3% is only $39 and it's not much, I say, gee, that's an awful lot. I cannot afford to get any newspapers, and for sure not the Buffalo News where that notice was printed. And one of the reasons I can is I'm spending $50 a week on property taxes. I was talking to a friend of mine, he's got some kids in a bigger house. He didn't realize it until I said, well, what do you spend a week? He spent $150 a week on his property taxes, which is way more than he's spending on groceries or nights out. So I would ask you to keep in mind when you look at the numbers that there's many different ways to look at those numbers. And if there's some way that you can save money for the taxpayers of the city, I'd really appreciate it if you take another look at it between now and next. The approval date is the 15th, right, next Thursday?
A couple things is to get back to where you are. We've talked about a motor pool We've talked about pooling all the mechanics under one roof, maybe making it possible for a mechanic to be there throughout the evening and rotate shifts. I've talked to the mechanics, I've discussed if this is feasible, we've got a property in mind, but it's still in its infancy, but it's already been discussed since last year, and we're making some headway on how we wanna do it, how they would integrate, and we have the cooperation of Mark Zellner, Adam Berg, who's the police mechanic, and the mechanics in the DPW. So we are looking at that. Unfortunately, to tell you that it's gonna be rolled out by the next budget that comes out, I can't make those kinds of promises.
Yeah,
But understand it, it's a good suggestion. It's been investigated very, very thoroughly. It's an example of shared services. It's effective. It will work, I think it'll work well. And we have a thought process on where we would put it. And we're also talking about sharing, services with schools again by having an auxiliary fuel pump. That would be a grant that would be provided because we are fueling our fire engines, we are fueling our police cars, we are fueling our DPW, and the buses also need fuel. And if we have an auxiliary pump, there's no downtime to get those plows out there so that the buses can go pick up those kids. We don't want a snafu where the buses are pushing the plows out to get fuel, but the buses aren't gonna get on the road because they need to plow first. It's not safe, to pick up kids. So we're working through all these things, and it's been several meetings over the past year, and the mayor can attest this, and Bob Pecoraro can attest this, and we wanna do things like this. The SRO agreement is an example of shared services. We're trying to help them, we're funding and sharing that service. And so I think a lot of what you're saying is good, and it has been heated, and we are listening to it. So the results may not be instantaneous. As far as the clerks and the typists, we talked about this before, and maybe Dan can touch on it. Those are maybe antiquated terms, clerk, secretary, typist. I mean, how many typewriters do we have? You brought that up last year.
yeah, exactly.
But there are people that do data entry. There are people that enter in every one of those meter readings. There are people that corroborate bills, send out late bills. And I don't know if you can pool the staff. We could look into it and take Peter to work for Paul. I don't know. We could look into it.
Well, to that kind of work, I have no objection. But secretaries are outdated. If I gotta write a memo, I was a chief operating officer of that organization, right? I didn't have a secretary write my memo. I wrote my own friggin' memos. I know some of those people in there, that's their jobs. You even have tools today in technology. Oh, and by the way, is Bill still there? Or I like your idea with the automated reading of meters. Don't let that get away, please. But there are so many different things you can do with technology that I think there are even actually, I used to actually do this when I was working. There are tools that let you speak your memo, and it types it for you. You don't need another person to type the memo. You don't need another person to type the press release. You don't need another person to type the public notice, okay? And I'm more worried about that, right? Because we're paying somebody a full-time wage, and then they're paying another person a full-time wage to do a part of their own, what I perceive as their own work, based on my experience in the private sector. I don't know how, Anyways, but one of the ideas in there was what Bill is actually working on. Okay, well, okay, when I sent it in the email, I said, what use of technology is, because if I remember right, at the workshop, when the person was presenting the share of cases, they couldn't find another city our size that was still doing it. It was amazing. Well, anyways, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Good luck with the budget next week, and I'll probably just show up to at least listen.
Anybody else wishing to speak on any city business, please step forward.
Good evening, Edward Smolinski, 1097 Sweeney Street, North Tonawanda. Real quick, the Division Street seemed to be working better, but I think just changing those lane ideas, so on and so forth, would better enough. I still don't like the stop signs, I think that's a bad idea, just saying. But what I'm concerned about is the Robinson Street exit. I noticed that they painted yellow lines at a curve that allows, people always could, but allows the traffic from Twin City Memorial Highway to completely turn straight without slowing down onto Rumble Avenue. They probably should have put them lines there. It could be lawsuit material if somebody does get hit there, then you allow people from flying out there. It is a Robinson Street exit. You probably should have tried to deter people who get to Robinson and not make that hard 90-degree turn on Rumble. Just saying. Next item. Why does the Parks Department, I addressed this issue several times when I was on the Waterfront Commission. Why does the Parks Department pull the boat docks out so early in the year? Particularly at Service Drive and Botanical Gardens. I know back in the day, the 70s, 80s, winters were more harsh. We used to get ice flow. Service Drive had wooden piers and they get damaged occasionally with ice. Our winters aren't as harsh anymore. Those piers have been replaced with steel. The past 3-4 weeks, they were pulled out 3 weeks ago. Even this weekend, it was very nice. A lot of people were pulling their boats out and had to like straddle on the girders because there's no docks at Service Drive. They could be left until December. I talked to employees, they said, well, we take them out to paint them. You know, that could be done later on. Greenwich Park, those, I know the ice is bad there, those should be taken out. But maybe they could leave them in a little longer, just a suggestion. Third thing, Momentum, North Tonawanda, the Webster Street corridor at $2.5 million. They had a thing at the, farmer's market. I went down there, checked it out. I think out in the hallway they got a thing where you can vote on it, but there's nowhere, is there any website that you know that you can actually see these pictures, find out where the $2.5 million is going? And is there any links to it? And how come there's nothing on the city website whatsoever mentioning this $2.5 million?
So Ed, the market, when I saw you at the market and we talked to Joy, it's still, from our understanding, being vetted out where all that's going.
Right.
Remember how there were options and then
Yes, it's still being talked about, but how come there's nothing anywhere on the website mentioning where this,
Does it reference
we're gonna be spending $2.5 million to like to see these ideas on paper, you know?
Donna, is it on the LCDC?
It possibly could.
It's on the LCDC.
It's on the LCDC
Yeah.
one? Okay, because I looked on the city, maybe the city could link it to the LCDC, maybe update that. Okay, thank you, have a good night.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on any city business, please step forward. State your name and address.
Good evening, Sonia Duza, 123 Miller Street. The budget, is that online now?
Yes.
It is.
Yes, it is, Sonia.
You know, I remember, I remember in the past, the budget was not just what you want, the amount. It was more detailed, more information, and it would show, I think, maybe the year before or 2 years before.
Still
what it
does.
is. Still the same thing, okay. I would like to have more information. When I look back in recent years, it's like, geez, it's not as much information as we used to have. And will
Did
you
you see
have
the
the,
size of it?
will you have the complete budget,
Here it is.
a couple hundred pages, something like that? Whole thing,
55 pages.
you know, in fact, I remember, I think in recent years, I copied the whole thing and it was more than 55 pages, I know
Well,
that.
it's
And the
55
print's
because
too
I
big
printed
on
it
what
this
you're,
year.
print's too big on what you're printing because it's never been.
But at one point, remember when the department had submitted sort of an explanation, I think it was around like 90 pages, but still, what department had sort of broke down why they needed certain items or, the ins and the outs, I
They had
guess,
that
but
information?
they gave the information, but it's not on the one on the website.
I would respectfully ask you to put that because it's helpful to us in digesting, processing, and making comments. Also, there was an article couple of weeks ago, front page of the Gazette and in the Reporter about the tennis courts and the young people playing tennis. Some of you, a lot of you are new. I think maybe Mark's the only one, and I hope he can back me up. He will back me up on this. For a long time, I have come before this common council and said to them, the Carruthers tennis courts have been damaged. A car accidentally, I guess, hit the fence on the north side, and I came repeatedly. One common council meeting, after the meeting, Eddie Adams, maybe some of you don't know him, but so you'll share, he was one of the oldest workers, or worked the longest in the city. After that meeting, he came up to me, he said, Sonia, they have the money, I saw the check. This is after repeatedly asking to have that repaired. It still hasn't been done. And at the same time, in those years, I'm saying at the same time, put the tennis court nets up. They weren't doing that. We received, that tennis court came in my neighborhood, that census tract, I believe in 1974. I will show you the contract. It was in our exhibit to State Supreme Court, whereby the city of North Tonawanda promised to U.S. HUD to upgrade the neighborhood. I was surprised we had gotten that. I used to play a table court, tennis courts in NT, and I thought, boy, this is wonderful. And I played, and there were younger people playing there with their parents, grandparents, and one of the workers from DPW lived on Robinson. I can't think of his name right now, but he regularly would be playing there, and he would teach younger children how to play tennis, how to hold the racket, how to shoot, hit, what have you. It was really a nice asset we had to the community. And I repeatedly, he also, let me emphasize to you, Eddie Adams said, that's the best tennis court in the whole city. One of the poorest neighborhoods had the best tennis court in the city. And if you didn't have to be a contractor, when you went on that court, you knew it was really, really made well. It was $74,000 in 1974 dollars. And it was really an asset to our neighborhood, and people enjoyed it. I was stunned at the last meeting to hear the person, I wasn't hearing well because he was speaking low and we don't have the best audio system here, that he took it upon himself to put those boxes and what have you. Let me back up a bit. When that tennis court was constructed, there were signs. When you go on that court, you must wear tennis shoes, nothing else, because it's a tennis court. And now, so in the intervening years, I used to shudder when I see them jumping and landing on that concrete, because that's, when you're playing tennis, you don't have distortions, what have you, you don't damage. And this person, they had taken upon themselves to do this. I did, this year, last year, mentioned the same thing. Hey, fix the fencing there. They were playing there. You guys never put a sign up, no skateboarding. I still was asking for that fencing to be repaired and the nets to be put up. This wasn't happening.
Thank you, Sonia.
You were violating your own regulations, and very importantly, something that we had. I was telling you about this. You never addressed my concern, and they were violating. You were letting them do this. I'll tell you also, soon after that tennis court, not long afterwards, I don't know, maybe a year or so, slowly that was being dismantled, and it was like, what's going on here? In retrospect, I believe the city did not want something so good for us to continue here. It was being dismantled, just like neighborhood been slowly being dismantled, going downhill. And in that agreement, the city promised US HUD to upgrade our neighborhood. It's gone just the reverse. And so I am going to be watching what you're doing, and I will communicate with US HUD. If you negate what you promised, bringing our neighborhood up and not maintaining, as you said, Mayor, quote, need to be maintained, the golf course, absolutely. Our parks and what have you, they need to be maintained. And that tennis court was one of those things that needed to be maintained. It wasn't.
Thank you,
It
Sonia.
hasn't been.
Thank you so much.
I'm letting you know
Thank you.
this.
Thank you.
And also,
Thank you
you
so
wanna
much.
plant trees, I love that, I think it's wonderful to have it. But if we
Thank
are
you.
planting trees, we also need to have care of them, maintained. We
Yes.
need the bodies,
We
the
got it.
maintenance of them,
Thank
the
you, Sonia.
forestry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak on any city business, please step forward, state your name and address. Seeing that there's none, we'll move on to closing comments. Starting with Austin Tyler, any closing comments for tonight?
Bill, thank you for vetting out the roof. I know initially we sort of had like a Band-Aid to the improvements, you know, and then the Cadillac plan, and now hopefully somewhere in between, so I'm excited to see the bids on that. I know it's been a long process, but thanks for sticking it out. And everyone make sure and go out and vote. You have like an hour and 15 minutes left, so if you don't know your voting location, I can help you find it before I leave, so, all right? That's it.
All set? Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Donna Braun, you're not last.
Wow, what happened there? I just wanna say, I appreciate, the mayor's hard work on the budget, and we, are gonna delve into it ourselves, and, we'll be here next week for, the budget hearing to hear from, anybody that's gonna come out and attend. So I appreciate it, all the hard work that the department heads put in it. And I do have to say one thing, Sonia, I think this year we have had more department heads attend our meetings than they have in the past. And I do appreciate when they're here because they have the answers. I don't always have the answers. You know, they're the ones that are here, you know, Monday through Friday. I can't be here all the time. They're here 40 hours a week. I'm here on a council meeting night. But I appreciate when they do come to the meetings. It is helpful for not just you, but for ourselves. But I do have to say that the department heads have been at our meetings a lot more than they have in the past, especially Bill, been here a lot. Thank you, Bill. And other than that, again, I'll reiterate, please go out and vote, and have a good night.
Alderman Mark Ruby,
I have nothing at this point.
okay, thank you. City Attorney Luke Brown,
I don't have anything for tonight.
and let's go to Dan, the man Quinn.
The only thing I'm gonna say is this upcoming weekend, please remember your veterans, and honor them, and if you see one walking around, please thank them for their service.
Yes, and I believe that Supercuts is giving free haircuts to the vets on Veterans Day, which I think is quite admirable for the community. So take advantage of that. Art, what kind of close comments do you have?
No, I just want to thank all of the department heads for their work with this budget this year. The budget's been difficult. It's a tight budget. Excuse me. And I put a lot of extra work on these department heads this year because when they submitted their budgets, it takes them time, takes them a long time to go over the costs of their department, their anticipated costs, and what's the right amount to ask for the next year. And when they did all this, I sent them back to do more homework. And I asked them to go over their budgets again and cut whatever's unnecessary spending. This isn't easy. This is difficult for these people. to have to go back and redo everything, and then submit it to the city accountant, which puts more on her plate, to try to come up with a budget that's going to be hopefully reasonable for the taxpayer. And none of us like to raise taxes. And if anyone thinks for 1 minute that people get together on this council for the purpose of trying to raise taxes, that's not true. We have to pay the taxes too. Our friends, our families have to pay the taxes. Nobody wants to raise taxes. But we have to keep in mind that this city has been very fiscally responsible. And if you look over the record, as I mentioned in the budget for the past 10 years, I think it needs to be emphasized that this budget over the past 10 years, this is a decade, there have been 3 years of no increase, 3 years of a decrease, 4 years of an increase of less than 1%. You compare that with cities our size in the area, you'll see that North Tonawanda is doing pretty well. So I think it's something we have to be aware of. Everything goes up. There isn't a household where the prices haven't gone up. No one's budget has stayed the same for 10 years. And very few have decreased in 10 years or stayed the same. It's something that's unfortunately is a reality. And our departments have been scrutinized very carefully. Our Public Works Department is cut in half of what it used to be. Half. But the workload has increased as the city ages. There's more to be done, and over the years, the city has spread out. There's more to it. For a city our size with population, our city is very spread out in square miles. And it's very diverse in demographics and in geography. It's a very, there's a lot to look at in North Tonawanda, and the increase is something that unfortunately has to come sometime. We can't go decade after decade without moving with increased tax here or there, and we've kept it to a very minimum. And I have to thank our department heads for their extra work, because they had to put in a lot of extra work. And I thank our city accountant for working on this, and because she had to wait for this too, and go through everything all over again. So it was quite a process, and some of the suggestions made tonight are very good ones. Much is already being looked into, but we are going to go forward. And I know Amanda has several ideas that she would like to see instituted or let us look at for streamlining even more, or becoming more efficient, or whatever we have to do. And we are open to the suggestions. The council is open. So I just want everyone to know that a lot of hard work was put in, not just by me, but by everybody. It's an effort to keep a sound budget at a reasonable rate. And I understand, we all understand, that what's reasonable to one person isn't necessarily reasonable to another. And we understand that everybody is at a different income level, and everybody has different situations. But taxation is the way the system operates. So with that said, I hope when the council looks at this budget closely in the next couple of weeks here, and next week actually, that whatever suggestions you have or whatever, I know you'll keep these things in mind, and whatever suggestions were made tonight will be considered. So thank you to the department heads, thank you to our accountant and the council. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Art. And just a few closing comments from me, I won't keep you long. You know, a lot of you brought up some good points, some good ideas, and as the mayor was saying, you know, in your household, your services go up. You know, you bought your house, maybe it's paid for, maybe it's not. You need a new roof. The cost of the roof replacement is more than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. things go up, the cost of services. We want these vital services to be provided to you. We don't wanna cut the services, we need to get those done. We wanna give the department the tools to get it done. In our DPW, I'll give you, for instance, your tax dollars at work, we're trying to get a better way to plow your streets so that there is carbide tips on a plow blade to eliminate the amount and use of salt on the roads, which is very, very expensive. It goes up every year. It's one example of services that we provide that costs are going up. The chlorine for the pool, the costs are going up. So as these costs go up, we've got to find a way to sustain the budget. And, I think raising our taxes over, 9 years at, what'd you total that up to, Art?
Well,
Not even 4% maybe?
No.
4%, when you have municipalities raising it 10% in 1 year, going over the tax cap, violating the tax cap. There was a lot of work put into this budget, I'm telling you. We've all been at the meetings, we've all talked about some drastic changes, and then we've kind of pared it down and we've really worked hard on it. Last year's budget wasn't as arduous, but my point is, if the DPW, I'm giving you one example, puts carbide tips on a plow blade, and they can make less passes throughout the city, and they can break up the ice without having to salt the roads, and they're not damaging the roads. It's a win-win for you, it's a win-win. It's less overtime for the trucks to be out on the roads plowing your streets. And it's just one example of doing better services, getting more done efficiently. And they've done a great job, that's just one department. Bill's done a great job, and he's really identified and helped us prioritize the many, many things going on with the wastewater and the water plant. They have some funds that we can use in different cases. But what I want to say is, to realistically say we're never gonna raise taxes, and our cable bills go up at home, our landscaping bills go up at home, the cost of gasoline goes up, and we have to put that into our budget, to say that the city doesn't have to do that. We're always looking at better ways to deliver those services for the least amount of money, the least cost to the taxpayer. We're looking at it, and we're taking your ideas, but I just wanna make you aware of the fact there are things in motion that you're gonna see, that we just talked about tonight, and ways of going forward, and we're committed to those ways of going forward. So, we understand that the burdens, that you face, and that's been taken care of and in consideration of while we're gonna deliberate and continue to deliberate on this budget. Did you need to say anything else?
I just wanted to add one last thing. If you've read the paper in the past day or so, I want to congratulate our police department for excellent police work in the solving of the armed robbery that took place over the weekend. Unfortunately, there was one person hurt in this robbery, but our police were there in a matter of minutes, short minutes, and they were able to apprehend the person, the perpetrator, and I congratulate our police department for excellent and quick work. Thank you.
Okay, with that, let's have a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, read it. Just to pick things up. I saw the Pro Basketball story that they're adding one police and one fire. Is that the case here? Is that the other half of the
Yeah, and this is part of it.
So is that one on top of the other? So the Manning would open.
I was
It's gonna be
Thank you.
mostly her office.
Oh, he's been hired already.
There's gonna be some
Is
mix-ups
he
in
in
there
your
also.
budget?
We don't, I think, so. Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, it's gonna be mostly her office.
Because of the thing, he was already,
Yeah.
Get together.
Yeah,
It was not, what we got.
So did either of those departments then, so police didn't see an overall increase in numbers, the fire department hasn't from what they are right now. Is the, fire department guy actually serving, is he still?
Yeah, sure. Oh my God.
Are there any other,
Yeah.